everybody, welcome back to my channel. So today's video I am doing the 2021 reading survey. I am super excited about this video. I have written down all the questions right here with my answers. I would love it if you guys would answer as well down below. I would love to know what you guys think about these questions. And I tried really hard not repeating any books from my top books of the year or worst books of the year, but like obviously there are going to be some repeats, so I think I'm gonna post this video a little bit later than my best and worst of the year, because there are obviously some repeats that I cannot avoid it, because I mean they were my best and worst books of the year for a reason. But I do have a few new books on this list because I tried to be original. So without further ado, let's get started. So the first question is how many books have you read in 2021? And I've read 109 books this year, which is the most I've read in quite a while. I had a really good reading year this year, so that was really good. And then the next question is how many pages have you read? And according to Goodreads, I have read 42,132 pages. So obviously it's give or take, because I don't know if I picked the right edition or whatever, but yeah, I have read around 42,000 pages, which is a lot. Like seriously, it's way more than I thought I had, so that's quite a bit. And then after it is most read genre, which that surprised me so much. I went to my story graph. I created a story graph, which is really exciting and really fun. I will link mine down below if you want to go add me there. I'm gonna try and be active there as well, because I liked their stats a little bit better than Goodreads. I thought their stats, like monthly and yearly, were a little bit more interesting than the one in Goodreads, so I think I'm gonna try to be more active and up to date on my story graph as well. But according to story graph, I read romance book the most, which is by one. I basically read 44 romance book and I read 43 fantasy book. So I don't know why it surprised me as much. I do know that a lot of fantasy books that I've read qualifies as romance book as well, so I think that's why. So yeah, the most read genre I've read last year is romance book, which is crazy in my mind. I don't know why. I always thought of myself as a fantasy and romance reader, so I knew there were both of these genres were going to be at the top. But I don't know why I didn't think romance was going to be number one. Wait, as I am saying that, I just got a romance book in the mail. So excited. This is going to be for a future video. I'm so excited for this book. Anyways, that is besides the point. So next question is favorite 2021 release. This is where it might get a little bit repetitive from my most like best and worst books of the year. Like I tried being different, but I mean some books I just had to pick the same one, so I just had to. But my favorite release had to be Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. This was my favorite book that I read last year. I didn't rank them, but if I had to rank them, this would be my favorite book that I read last year. So I had to pick this one up. It was so good. This is a sci-fi book. I don't read a ton of sci-fi as well. It was just so good. I mean, everyone is putting this book on their best, not everyone, but like most of the people are putting this book on their best books of the year, on their like list of best book of the year, and it is totally deserving of all of its hype. This was amazing. I loved it. 5 out of 5. Amazing book. Go read it if you haven't read it yet. So after it is your favorite older title that you've read in 2021, and I'm gonna go with The Duke and I by Julia Quinn. I don't know if this is my favorite book that I've read that wasn't released in 2021, but I wanted to pick this book up because this book basically started my love for historical romance book. This is the first historical romance book that I've read, and after that I've read basically all of the Bridgerton books. I've read a few Julia Quinn books, a few Tessa Dare books, and so like I said, this is the first historical romance book that I've read, and ever since I've fallen in love with that genre, so I kind of just had to pick this book up. Not because of this book, but because of what it represents. So that's why I picked this book for this question. Next one is a book that lived up to its hype. But this one was a hard one because I basically read all of my books because of their hype. Because I mean, I watched so many like videos and I'm on Instagram and TikTok and everything. So basically all of the books that I pick up are because their hype somewhere, and so it was a hard one, but I decided to choose No Exit by Taylor Adams. This book is once again an older book. This book came out in 2018, and a lot of people were raving about this book. It's a thriller book. It's about this girl who stops at a rest area because there's a blizzard outside, and then she sees a girl kidnapped in one of the van in the parking lot, and so she knows that someone in that rest area is a kidnapper, and so that's where our story picks up, and it is so good. Like I said, I picked this book up because everyone was raving about it, and I read this book in one sitting as well. Everyone was right about this book. It was so good. I loved it. It's the perfect winter read as well. A lot of times books are super hype in the beginning, and then as more and more people read it, then the hype kind of falls a little bit. But this, like, years after its release, people are still raving about this book, and for good reason. It was so good. I loved it. And then the next one obviously is a book that did not live up to its hype, and I'm gonna pick up maybe a controversial pick, who knows. I'm gonna choose The Midnight Library by Higg. This was not in my most disappointing books of the year, but it could have been. I kind of just forgot about that book. Kind of tells you how I feel about this book. I enjoyed this book. It was pretty good. I liked it, but I feel like so many people were raving about this book when it first came out, and I think now that more and more people have read it, the hype kind of slowed down a little bit. But when this first came out, everyone was raving about this book, and everyone was saying how different it was and how, like, impacting this book was, and honestly it was good, but it wasn't, for me, it wasn't anything spectacular. This reminded me so much of a TV show that I watched called Being Erica. It's basically the exact same concept, except a library, it's a therapist, I think. It was good. I liked it. It's a pretty short book. It's a pretty short read. I enjoyed it. It was good. It was just nothing impactful like I thought it was going to be, and like everyone was saying it was going to be. Next one is going to be Your Biggest Accomplishment, and according to Goodreads, the biggest book that I read was The Well of Ascension, which is probably also my biggest accomplishment. I don't like big books, so any big book that I read, for me, when I finish them, I feel very accomplished and feel very proud of myself. So this, at 775 pages, I was really excited when I finished this book. It was really, really good. I really, really enjoyed this book. I still haven't read the third book because it's a problem of mine. I read all of my series up until the last book, and then I never read the last book because I don't want to finish a series. I also read the first book, The Final Empire, this year. So both of these books are probably some of my biggest accomplishment that I've read this year, and probably like ever, because these are so big and I don't like big books. So yeah. Next is going to be my favorite character. So this, in order for me to not pick a character in Project Hail Mary again, because if you've read that book, then you know one of the characters, which is probably everyone's favorite character this year. But I want it to be original and pick something else, so I'm gonna pick, which is not super original, because where is that book? It's probably not super original because I've talked about this book in my best book of the year, but anyways, I had to pick it up because I want to talk about Amari once again. Amari and the Night Brothers by B.B. Alston. Amari was an amazing character. I loved her so much. She is just, I loved her so much. She was just the best character ever. So I had to choose her for the best character I read this year. She was such a strong character, so willing to do anything, but so vulnerable at the same time. I just loved her so much. So I had to pick her as a favorite character. Oh, next one is least favorite character. I don't know if I have one, to be quite honest with you. A book that I liked, but I did not like the characters. I cannot find one. I'm sorry. So yeah, that's one question that I could not find the answer to. Next is the most surprising moment, and I'm gonna go with a romance book, weirdly. It's going to be It Happened One Autumn by Lisa Clayface. If you saw my review of that book, then you'll know the ending of that book was the weirdest thing ever for a romance book. It took a left turn into a weird space. If you read the third book in the series, then you know why, and it makes so much sense now that I read the next book in that series. But reading the second book, and then finishing that book, it was weird. I don't want to spoil anything because obviously it's the last like it's the ending of the book. It was weird. It just was surprising because it wasn't anything that I was expecting in a romance book, especially. And so yeah, that's my most surprising book. Or moment, I should say. Favorite writing, that's a hard one as well. I mean, the book that comes to my mind because it's the most different than anything else that I've read, it's going to be Empire of the Vampire by Kristoff. I don't know if it's my favorite writing, but it's the one that's the most different than anything else that I've read, if that makes any sense. It's good writing too. I don't know if it's my favorite, it's just very different than anything else. It's kind of the first book that comes to me when I think about writing, especially. I don't know, that's pretty much it. I'm sorry. Next is the book you pushed the most people to read. No surprise here, it's going to be Black Sun by Rebecca Warnhorst. This book, I feel like every time I talk about this book, or every time I've included this book in one of my videos, I say if there's one book that you should read in this video, it's this one. So that's why I'm choosing this book. And I feel like I've talked about this book so much, especially when I first read it. I was talking constantly about this book. I mean, it's been a while now. I read it in March, so I think I've calmed down a little bit now, but when I first read this book, I was talking about this book constantly. And then the next question is a book that you'll be recommending the most, which obviously this one would work, but I do think the book that is going to be the most accessible to anyone is going to be The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. I don't think anyone could read this book, or like anyone would be interested in reading this book. It's very different. It's a fantasy book. It's a weird book. It's not for everyone. This one, I feel like more people are gonna like it and more people are gonna enjoy this book. So I feel like the one that I'm gonna be recommending the most, I'm guessing like in my personal life, it's going to be this one. This is kind of a cozy fantasy book. So I feel like not a lot of people do not like this book. So that's the one that I'm going to be recommending the most, I think. For specific people, this is the book that I'm going to be recommending. For majority of people, this is the one that I'm going to be recommending. So, did I answer these questions correctly? Let me know in the comments down below. Next one is going to be favorite new author. I have to go with Julia Quinn because I've read basically all of this series this year. It's my most read author this year because I read 7 of her books this year. So I read all of the Bridgerton series this year, so I just have to go with it. I loved them all. They were so good, all amazing. I think my lowest rating is like 4 stars for these books. So I mean, I love them all. They were so good. Next question is favorite cover, and I wanted to choose one that was not a special edition book, one that you could just go to the store and buy right now, right away. I didn't want to choose a Fairy Loot book because I feel like that was cheating, and so I chose Spin the Dawn by Elizabeth Lim. Look at this cover. Like, how pretty is this? It's so pretty. I know the second book has a really pretty cover as well. I don't have that book. I ordered this book from Book Depository because I wanted the UK edition. I like the US edition, but this is just something else. How pretty is it? It's so pretty. I love it. Six Crimson Crane has also a really pretty cover. This is the Fairy Loot edition, but the original UK edition as well is really, really pretty, and I really, really like it. Since I don't have the regular edition, I picked this one because this is the regular edition. I like this book. It was a pretty good book. Not my favorite book of the year or anything. I will continue on with the series one day. I don't know when. It's a duology, so I should probably read it soon. It was a good book, just anything spectacular. I liked it. Nothing crazy. But the cover is gorgeous. Next question is a book that made you cry. I don't cry a lot in books. The only books that really made me cry this year were Project Hail Mary and this book, this is Anne of Green Gables. This is the first book in the series. I mean, I grew up watching the movies, so if you've seen the movies or read the book, there's one scene in the book that makes me cry every time I watch the movie or read the book. So it wasn't anything like unusual for me to cry in this book, but I've been slowly rereading this series. I'm on the 3rd one now, or 4th one, I'm not sure. It's a really good series. I like it. It's so it's kind of a children's classic book that is really cute and I really like it. Next question is a book that made you laugh, and it's going to be a repeat from my best book of the year, and it's going to be The 7 Book Club's Guide to Slaying a Vampire by Grady Hendrix. This book was so good. Like I said, it wasn't my best book of the year, and one of the reasons why I put it in the best book of the year is because it's such a funny book. It's a horror book, and it's a true horror book. There's some gory scenes, there's some scary scenes in this book, but it made me laugh sometimes in this book, and it was just so good. So I had to pick this book. And once again, books don't make me laugh out loud that often, so when they do, they kind of stand out, so you know. Next is favorite reread, and I don't reread a ton. I've only reread 2 books this year, and so I don't want to pick The Sword of Cadian again, so I'm gonna pick Serpent and Dove by Shelby Moran. Honestly guys, this was so good the second time that I've read it. It was so much better the second time that I've read it, so it's not like it is one of my favorite reread that I did. I really enjoyed this one way more the second time that I've read it. I don't know if I just read it too quickly the first time, or I just wasn't paying attention enough, or I don't know what happened, but this was really good. I really enjoyed it, so this is one I'm really happy that I reread this book. And then the last question is most surprising 5 stars read. Can I choose anything else than Project Hail Mary? I'm gonna try really hard. I'm gonna try really hard, and I just need to find something else then. Oh, well, I've talked about this book as well. Okay, so let's go with Devil in Winter by Lisa Clayface. Especially with how book 2 ended, I did not expect to like this book as much as I did. This is the 3rd book in the Wallflower series. I've been loving this series, but like I said, with how the 2nd book ended, I did not expect to like this book as much. So I mean, people were loving this book, and people were raving about this book, but I didn't think I was gonna like it because of how the 2nd book ended. Once again, I just keep repeating myself. I ended up loving this book so much. I ended up loving Evie's character and loving Sebastian's character as well. I loved their love story so much. I loved how everything wraps up. I love how everything ties with the 2nd book as well. I love this book so much, and yeah, honestly, this is a really surprising 5 stars read this year. If you saw my top romance book of the year, I did not have a lot of romance book in that list. So I mean, I love romance, but they don't necessarily last with me in the long run like fantasy does, but this one did. This one, it was amazing. 5 stars. I loved this book so much. That's it guys, those were all the questions in the reading survey. Have you read any of these books? Do you guys agree with me? Do you guys disagree with me? I would love to know in the comments down below. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys have a wonderful day or night depending on when you're watching this, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!
I can't believe that you came into my life.